Embiid got a piece of it. Running the floor. Embiid stuffs it.
Harden for three. James Harden with his second triple.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Pick Swap Podcast. It's a beautiful Tuesday afternoon here in Philadelphia. It's me and Sean Bernard as usual. We're also joined today by a guest and a future member, a third edition here, James Gilardii. Want to shout out James really quick. Say what's up. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get started in this crazy day of Sixers news.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Sean, thank you so much for reaching out and let me know about this. I go to Penn State. I'm studying meteorology right now. Basically your typical college guy. Grinding that out. I'm a huge Sixers fan, obviously. Really follow sports, specifically Philly sports, really in depth. I've always been really passionate about it. I follow the Sixers since the first game I watched was like the Bulls series when we upset them.
D-Rose.
And then my first. We haven't really gotten into Eagles talk here, but I've watched the Eagles since the NFC Championship game in 2008. So I've been pretty much a lifelong fan. I'm 20 years old now. I've been watching sports since I was like 7 years old. So that's some stuff about me. Yeah.
Yeah, man. We're really happy to have you on. We're excited about this going forward.
Yeah.
Sean, say what's up, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Sixers season winding down, 4 more to go. Joel with a little old-fashioned performance against the Cavs, and Doc Rivers rumors about heading west. So not a bad day in the Sixers world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot happening right now. Obviously, we're going to cover the Cavs game. We're going to talk about a little MVP update, talk about James Harden a bit tonight against the Pacers. And then, we'll cover a little bit of the Doc and the Los Angeles Lakers rumors. I wrote an article about that earlier. It seems to be like a little bit of an interesting case. Before we get started in all of this, we're going to shout out our sponsor, BetUS. You can use our code PIGSWAP at login to get your first bet risk grip to $500 in one of the leading sportsbooking casinos in the market. They're expanding, and just like us, we're super excited to be a part of their growth. You can check out their player props, check out us for our PIGSWAP parlays, and remember to use our code PIGSWAP at login to get your first bet risk free up to $500. So let's talk about this game against the Cavs. It's been up. There's a lot of controversy going around right now. JB Bickerstaff had a lot to say about the way the game was officiated going into, yesterday. There's a lot of talk about it. So Sean, I'll throw it to you first, brother. Just run me through that game. And then on the second time around, we'll talk about the fouls and, the way that Bickerstaff complained afterwards.
Yeah, I thought it felt like a first half of the season game in terms of how the Sixers looked, how Joel looked specifically. It was a game where Joel obviously had it going. He ended with 44 points, 17 rebounds, 3 assists, 12 of 26 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, 5 blocks, he was very dominant on the defensive end, which I just love seeing when Embiid is locked in on that side of the ball. And that is game changing, just the way, like, those blocks were not even like close. They were like volleyball spikes on just about all of them. Yeah. And just when he's tuned in and dialed in defensively like that, there's not, I would say, not another center in the league that can play up to those standards. And that matters for a team, specifically in crunch time. I believe 3 of those came in the fourth quarter of the blocks. He looked terrific. He had it going. To me, it felt like a game that Joel specifically just willed this team to win, which, once again, this was the theme the whole first half of the season. And he's just capable of that. Like, it's very impressive for him to be able to say, like, we're not losing this game. And I get they didn't have Mobley or Jarrett Allen. They were pretty depleted defensively with big man options. But these are games against the Cavs that Embiid has eaten all season, and it was the same story in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Embiid was his typical self, really, specifically against the Cavs. I've seen some memes. It's like a picture of Embiid cropped over I think it's like a GTA character, like holding on to like a dog leash, and the dog is like the Cavs logo, pretty much telling us that Embiid owns the Cavs, and Embiid seems to have a big game against the Cavs every single time, or some sort of big play. So it's really awesome to see. But yeah, so
it's he's been, there's all these conversations, and we're gonna talk extensively about the MVP conversation and, the way that this has been kind of unfolding over the last week or so. But man, just dominance in another form. Sean, you talked specifically about the defense. When you look at the way that he played, and the conversations that we do have about the differences between him and Jokic and where he stands out, there isn't another center, like not just Nikola Jokic, but there isn't another center that does what he does. And kind of dating back to when we talked about the JJ Redick podcast and what they were talking about, he's had the number one defensive rating for his team on the court, and then the number 4 defensive rating last year. Like, he's that good enough. He said it himself. We're always going to have a great defensive team when I'm on the floor, just because he does it that well. So I thought that stuck out specifically when you're looking at that game. Getting to the free throw line, he was 17 of 20 from the free throw line, I believe. So he got his money's worth from the line. And JB Bickerstaff had a lot to say about it, saying that the Cavs deserved to win. This game was taken from them. They did a really good job defensively, quote unquote, on Harden and Embiid from the field, but you can't defend free throws. Pretty weak and loser mentality for me when I see that. You kind of got your ass beat 4 times this year by the Sixers. You fouled the Sixers enough to put them to the line 42 times. To me, that's on you. So how do you feel about that, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, you can call it foul baiting, you can call it whatever. At the end of the day, like, it's a skill to get to the line, and if you don't want the guy shooting free throws, just do not foul him, and that's easier said than done. And when looking at this like Cavs game specifically, the Sixers shot 42 free throws as a team, but the Cavs shot 31. So it's not like that's a massive difference. And obviously, I mean, that's still 11 more, which is a good bit, but 31 free throws on the Cavs end is a lot as well. So the whistles were working both ways. I mean, it is kind of like, it's frustrating guarding Embiid because there's simply not much you can do. Like, he's just bigger and stronger than just about any matchup he gets. And you saw him on the block just working his way. I've loved the increase in physicality from him this year specifically, and just working, getting position down low, fighting for the spot. And that all translates to getting from the line. And the reason anybody cares about this at all is just because he makes them. It's because he's good at it. And I mean, it's not that far off from what Ty Lue said a couple weeks ago with the similar thing about complaining about the free throws. It is definitely loser mentality. It is definitely weak-minded, and you just can't guard this guy, and that's the end of story for him getting to the line. Obviously, he gets away with some. He does have a little bit of a loose whistle. That's a NBA star thing. That it's the same thing with like Luka Doncic, with guys that are just the same caliber. Giannis is shooting like a fraction of less free throws per game as Embiid, and Embiid is like the only one that gets the critique. So I get it's not always the most visibly pleasing way to get there, but it all counts the same, and it shouldn't be discounted.
Oh, Sean, I agree with every single word you just said. I think a lot of the coaches, along with the rest of the NBA, really have the same loser mentality, really coming at Embiid for how many free throws he shoots. When in reality, free throws are just a part of the game. And we got to think about, like, why is he getting so many free throws? It's because he's not guardable. I mean, most of the time he's being double, triple teamed. So, of course, he's going to, get some contact on the way to the rim, because if you don't make any contact, there's no stopping him, really. So, I mean, shooting more free throws just goes to show how actually unstoppable he is. It's really insane. And you mentioned, I think I remember the stats on the top of my head about how many free throws Giannis shoots a game or makes a game, and then how many free throws Embiid makes a game. And Embiid's at like 11.8 and Giannis is at 11.5, but a lot of people have Giannis as their MVP, even though he's shooting as many free throws. I don't really get that argument at all.
Like, it makes no sense. It's actually like kind of dumbfounding how obvious that, like, there's no comparison, that like they're literally basically getting in the line the same amount of times. Giannis plays a very physical brand of basketball. And he gets away with just as many offensive fouls as anyone else in the league. Like, Giannis is infamous for putting the shoulder down, running through guys, and then dunking. And, Embiid does the same thing. Embiid is a massive, dominant big man. Like, he is much more than most can handle. So I don't know, man. The free throw argument is just so tired, and it's just so lame. And it's just like, to have an actual NBA coach go to the podium after the game and talk about how oh, we should have won that game. That game was taken away from us. No, it wasn't. You turn the ball over in your last possession. You foul. You put a team in the line 42 times. That's not on Embiid for foul baiting. Like, you couldn't stop him. Every time he got the ball, he was getting around. I mean, Sean, you said it too. Like, there are times the rip throughs, he does search for contact, but that's part of the game too. Like, anyone that's played basketball knows that is very much part of the game, especially down the stretch. Like, they were running that 2-man game between him and Harden. He was getting open in the paint. There was literally nothing they could do. They were sending him and Harden to the line every time down the floor. That's on you guys. And I really don't understand how an NBA coach can go onto the podium and take no responsibility and no accountability for the way that his team played and rather put everything on the refs. He ends up getting fined $15K, which is hilarious to me. But beyond the point here, Embiid scores 44.
Mhm.
Him, Jokic, and Giannis all had fantastic days on Sunday. Like, they all played at different times. They all showed out, played some of their best games of the season. But, I think Embiid had statistically the best game of the day. He's still not favored anymore as the MVP. There's been a lot of conversations about it. So I know that we've talked about it, and obviously the three of us are probably on the same boat here of thinking Embiid is the MVP. Can we talk about, just the situation right now where it's coming down probably to these three? Embiid has a chance to win the scoring title. Just give me your breakdown of how and why, and if Embiid can actually win this award.
Yeah, I unfortunately think it's pretty likely it's Jokic's award at this point, which is a crazy swing from how it's been most of the season. It's been pretty locked up. Embiid as the heavy favorite for most of the season, but those odds have shifted. Jokic, the Vegas lines pretty clearly indicated he's still on top, which is very frustrating to watch. I do think Embiid has a very legitimate chance at the scoring title. LeBron was announced out for the game again today. He's only played 56 games this year. If they shut him down, which they might not even make the play-in, and he might not even get a scoring title, so just an absolute disaster in LA. But looking at it, even including LeBron, Embiid's second at 30.2 points per game. LeBron's at 30.3 points per game. I believe 56 is not enough to qualify for the scoring title. So I think that would eliminate him if he is shut down for the year. And that'll be something to watch out. The Lakers got a couple more games too. Giannis right on the heels at 30.1 points per game. It's pretty much a 3-horse race for them for the scoring title. Jokic obviously isn't in the same scoring discussion. He does way more in terms of playmaking and a better rebounder in that terms, and that's kind of where he does his damage. I get very frustrated by the advanced stats obsession with Jokic and the determined nature of calling him underrated when every single person is calling him underrated. That just can't be the case. And to keep calling a guy underrated who is literally the former MVP of the league is insane to me. But I don't know. It's disappointing. I thought it was Joel's award to lose for the biggest portion of the season. I'm hoping a couple massive games to end this shifts things, but I do think it's Jokic's award as of now.
I think I'm going to continue with my bias here, honestly. I think an MVP thing is a whole season thing. I think there's been a lot of recency bias
For sure.
with the Vegas odds and even just in the Twitter world. Embiid hasn't gone out and scored 30 plus for a few games up until, this weekend. And I think seeing him struggle a little bit, he had a little bit of a rough stretch at the free throw line as well. I think he shot like 50 or 60% for like over a 3-game stretch. I think it was a 3-game losing streak. He was really struggling for the line. And I think there's a lot of recency bias there. And we got to look at the big picture. I think MVP also, it says in the name, valuable. If you look at the Sixers without Embiid on the court and the Sixers with Embiid in the court, it's a huge, huge difference. And I think you have to take that into consideration as well. Like, I mean, I haven't watched enough of the Nuggets games or the Bucks games to see how the Bucks function without Giannis and how the Bucks function with him. Same thing with the Nuggets. So I can't really make an argument there. But there's obviously a really, really big difference when Embiid is on the court and when he's not for the Sixers.
Yeah, I think there's some fundamental flaws with the conversations around this award. One being that, like, either Jokic or Embiid isn't good to, if you're an Embiid fan, you're saying, oh, Jokic is whatever, whatever. Or if you're a Jokic fan, you're saying, oh, Embiid does this and that to discredit them. We've talked about this a lot. Like, it's just untrue. Giannis is incredible. And watching him play, I watched him play on Sunday again, and just he's going to go down as like one of the best players ever. Like, realistically, he is dominant. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's going to continue that for a long time. Jokic is an incredible, unique, different, unbelievable talent as well. But so is Joel Embiid. And here's where I go with it. And I had this conversation. I got into a little bit of a Twitter back and forth yesterday. It would be a shame to me for Embiid to have this stretch of seasons and to have been as good and as dominant as he's been, for him to not leave this with an MVP, for him to get out of this stretch, for him to be doing what he's doing on the scale that he's doing it, and to deal with the bullshit that he's had to deal with, and to leave this without an award that shows the effort, the performances, and everything that he's gone through without getting an MVP for this, I think is just shameful. And, I got clowned for saying that yesterday, saying it's not a shame. Obviously it is. Jokic got his recognition last year. Jokic got his recognition off a loophole because that was an Embiid award. Just happened that he didn't play enough games. And now Embiid has a better season and plays more games, and you're still going to move the goalpost again and say, oh, he's not doing this or he's not doing that. Oh, he got James Harden in February. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I just don't know how you can. Giannis has 2 of these awards. Giannis was credited for the work that he did, for the performance that he put on. Jokic had a great season last year, and now he got his award. He's the reigning MVP. He's not underrated. He's, maybe perfectly or overly rated. Embiid deserves this award. He deserves to get one. And as much as people talk about this, and as much as people talk about the way Embiid plays and saying, his timeline's kind of short, he deserves this award this year. And it's going to be really, really disappointing if he doesn't get it. I know there's bigger fish to fry. I know there's a longer view with him, and it's really awesome that he has that, and he still wants to win Defensive Player of the Year. He wants to win championships. He understands that, and hearing talk about that, he understands it. But like, even he said, is like, I don't know what I have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
They said that I had to play more games. I played more games. They said I need to be better. I was better. I expanded my game. I shot better from 3. I shot better from the mid-range. I passed more. I dealt with Ben Simmons not playing, not showing up. Like, I don't get it. I really don't understand how the conversations have just completely turned 180. Like, it was Embiid, like up until game 60, and then it's just been like a free for all since then. So I don't really understand.
Yeah, and I mean, first off, I'll say the stretch that he had prior to the All-Star game, and just that window where he was just an automatic 30+ points and just absolutely putting his fingerprints all over every single game. I would say that's the most dominant stretch that has been played by any player in the NBA this season, including Giannis, including Jokic. I still think on a consistent stretch, the way he did that, it was more impressive to me than anything that they have done this whole season. And I also think it gets discounted a little bit because of the Harden trade. Like, obviously Harden is like the top tier ticket level talent, but this is by far Embiid running the show and still has a pretty much win or lose with what he does, which is the Cavs game most recently is just purely evidence of this. And when we talk about value to a team, like if you take Joel Embiid off the Sixers team for most of this season, let's go back before the Harden trade. This is realistically probably a lottery team without James Harden, without Ben Simmons, without Joel Embiid. There just is not that much talent there. And sure, we have great guys as far as like Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris has been good of late, especially. I actually would like to give Tobias a shout out because he has been very good of late. Quicker trigger, pulling it, making smart decisions, and that's exactly what the Sixers need him to do. So shout out to Tobias. He catches a lot of slander, but you've been doing your thing. Back to Embiid, like it just is not. I feel like you said, the goalpost has moved a little bit. Things are shifting, and it just feels like he doesn't get enough credit for just like literally backpacking this team for the whole first half of the season until like the reinforcement came in James Harden.
Yep. Yeah, and Sean, you kind of nailed all the points I wanted to talk about. Just people, I don't know why everybody's like forgotten about the whole Simmons thing. I mean, that was a massive part of the season, and the Sixers. I mean, Embiid carried us, and we were still among the top of the East, even without Ben Simmons and all the distractions off the court from that. And then we added James Harden, and even then, he's still posting consistent big numbers. I mean, he's having multiple 30-point games, multiple 40 bombs. You know, people were saying, "Oh, since we've added James Harden, we might see a dip in Embiid's numbers." We really haven't. I mean,
Yeah,
he scores 27 and we say, oh, that was a rough game for Embiid.
literally.
That's 27 points. Are you kidding me? Like, that's insane. I mean, we'd be happy if I know this is a youngster, but we would be happy if Tyrese scored 27. I think the bar is so high for Embiid because of how good he is, and I just think the rest of the league just isn't identifying that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It just kind of sucks to see the narrative kind of take that dip. And Sean, I've talked about this for the entire season. That this is a narrative based award.
Yeah,
The person that has the strongest narrative at the time is the person that's going to win. And I don't know, man. It's annoying. It really is. And it's constant, terrible, terrible discourse on the internet, and a bunch of people that just will go to the stat sheet and look up whatever ridiculous advanced metric that they can find that shows that Jokic is better than Embiid. We saw the one, I forget who it posted it, but they had a list of different categories that Jokic was performing at a higher rate than Embiid, and one of them was like fantasy points. I was like, if you're basing anything,
Oh my
any
god!
basketball opinion off of the fantasy points that they're scoring, I have like really bad news for you. And the news is that you're a dumbass.
Yeah.
So to move past this, because I'm sure we could talk about this for a long time, and to talk about the new guy, James Harden is now fully involved here. He ends with a triple double. It's one of a very weird James Harden game the other night, because it seems like he is starting to find that he has like one stretch a game where he's scoring the basketball. It seems to be in the third or early fourth. Harden starts to attack, starts to shoot. I think he was only like 4 of 11 from the field, something not great. But he ends with 21, 10, and 10, which to me is still a very, very solid James Harden game. And looks like I think that's the type of performance that we're hoping for. Maybe a little bit more efficient from the field. He's still finding that jumper.
yeah,
Um, I don't know what's going on. It's the catch and shoot thing is still lingering. His inability to do so is strange, somewhat concerning to a level. But it's there. You can see he's kind of putting it together. Him and Embiid in the two-man and the pick and roll, really, especially late in that Cavs game, and they've seen it in stretches. They've really been able to dominate and take over, and that, it's kind of unguardable most of the time. So, Sean, coming off that performance, looking at these next couple games and then going into the playoffs, what do you see from James Harden, and what do you expect from him as a playoff performer?
yeah. So he shot 4 for 13 and 2 of 7 from three in the Cavs game. Not great there. He really has not found the jumper. And the thing that frustrates me more than that is just the lack of mid-range just options in his game. It's pretty much the step back three or attack the basket and try and get fouled. And he hasn't been great finishing around the rim either. He did play well in the Cavs game in crunch time. He had a big bucket where he had Lauri Markkanen on the perimeter. Struggled a little bit to shake Lauri, which concerned me a little bit, but he did get there, get the bucket and the foul, which was a big basket, push them in the way. I mean, to start with, as far as his fit in this offense and looking toward the playoffs, and I've thought this since the trade initially happened, the bigger role that was needed to be filled with the Sixers team was as a playmaker, as a distributor. That's absolutely was missing more than anything. It's just there's guys that need to get the ball more and that weren't. I will give Harden a ton of credit for finding himself with that. The catch and shoot thing, which you just brought up, James, I think is a much bigger deal than it's being made out to be. And it is such a unique problem because like catch and shoot is just such like a basic basketball, just routine, just factor. Just you just catch and shoot, you just do it. But Harden specifically is so ingrained in this step back three, the dribble. He plays at his own pace, maybe more so than any player in the NBA. Like you cannot speed him up or slow him down. He's just going to go at James Harden pace for 100% of the game. And there's an aspect of that that's like comforting, but there's also an aspect of that. It's like all right, man, like change it up a little bit here. And when looking at the catch and shoot, there's times where it's just swung around the perimeter and he'll either like shoot it and he just looks uncomfortable doing it, or he'll just like squeeze in a dribble in a time where it's just like just shoot the ball, man. And that is something I really would like to be worked on and ironed out. Again, I don't think it should be that difficult. Like it's like that's one of the easiest things in the world to practice. And at the end of the day, it's the exact same shot, whether you're stepping back or not. It's very timing based, like in rhythm based with his step back. That's become such like a key part of his identity that I think shaking that is a little weird. But I guess my concern heading into the playoffs is there's more of a limit to his bag than I expected in terms of scoring the ball, shaking with the handle. It's pretty much the step back, the little shoulder fake. He can get in front, and it's either get fouled or go to three. So I don't know how that translates to the playoffs. If he catches a hot streak with his jumper at the right time, it's exactly what the Sixers need. But there's a part of me that I definitely have my concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I have my concerns. I'm still a little worried about his hamstring, and I'm
Yeah.
wondering if his, catch and shoot, and even we've seen him struggle, trying to drive into the basket. I mean, it seems like we see he either gets fouled or he gets the ball knocked away, and it's just I don't know what's going on. It's not the finisher that I've seen from him. You know, it's just I don't really know what the rhyme or reason is, and I don't know if it's because he's older and he's getting a little bit, he's just getting a little washed, I guess, or it's just that hamstring that keeps on nagging at him. I mean, I'm happy with what he's putting up, but I definitely was hoping for more when we initially traded for him.
Yeah, I think I'm right in between you guys. So, you want more from Harden, you do, but like when I look at it and I look at that game and face value 21, 10, and 10, great, fantastic. Give me that, and I'm taking that to the bank 10 out of 10 times. If that's what he's given us, by all means, please. To look a little bit deeper, you see the 4 from 13, you see the 2 from 7, not that great, right? To me, I'm confident. His confidence doesn't seem to waver.
Yeah.
His confidence I mean, it's James Harden. It shouldn't waver. So that's what keeps me going. That's what I haven't found that like I recognize the concern. I absolutely do. The jumper, it seems a little bit wacky. He's not able to create the separation that he once was. He looks like he's moving a little bit slower. The hamstring is concerning. We'll talk about rest in a little bit. But I'm not unconfident that he'll make an impact one way or another. Like you said, Sean, as a facilitator, he's as good as anyone in the league. He's doing more for the rest of this team than anyone else has really ever done.
Yeah.
The one thing I do get a little bit frustrated with is the lack of flow at times, where if he's not on the ball, he's kind of just hanging around. And there's sometimes where the ball just sticks. And that's something that, again, you figure out as you go. When the grand scheme of things, they haven't played a lot of games together. So there's a lot to be worked out yet. And that's kind of the paradox that we're in right now. Like, you want them to play as many games together, but with the hamstring and Embiid's nursing ankle injuries, he wants the MVP, he wants the scoring
Right.
title.
Yeah.
Harden wants to get, acclimated and feel full strength. And it's just tough because you want them to play as much together, but you want them to chill. Neither of them are on the injury report tonight. So it looks like they're, all forces ahead here against Indiana. What do you do here? Are you hoping that you clinch this spot? You're not too worried. You go into the next final 3 games or so and you let these guys go, or are you waiting for the play-in tournament's going to give some time? You probably have a week or so off before you start that playoff series. What's the plan of action from here?
Yeah, I think they're gonna play Embiid as much as they can. I think they have a back-to-back, so they play today, then they play again Thursday, and then a Saturday, Sunday back-to-back to end the season. I think one of those games he'll be off. They play the Pacers again on the Saturday, but I think one of those games will be off, but he'll probably play 3 out of the next 4. I do think he's gonna chase the scoring title a little bit, stick in there, be the MVP, keep getting minutes together with Harden specifically. Uh, I don't think rest is as big a deal as I once did. I mean, I think Embiid has always wanted to be a guy that plays as much as possible, and he's showing that this season. I think that's important to him as just kind of a reputation and prove it thing. So he wants to continue just being on the court, which has been the case his whole career. That's the guy he's wanted to become, and he has. He's there every game. So I don't think really prioritizing rest is that essential now. And even looking ahead, like to the playoffs, like you have days off in between every game. So it's not like they're going to be crunched for an immediate jump to the playoffs and then a like brutal schedule. Like you have your time to rest in the playoffs more so than in the regular season, even. So I don't think it's that big a deal there. Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to play out 3 of the next 4, give it his all, and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The only person I would think that might rest for probably 3 of the last 4 games is probably Harden. If there's really concern behind that hamstring and they want him to be 1,000% for the playoffs, because again, we're going to need him and Embiid to play probably 40 plus minutes in the playoffs. And I mean, Embiid, as you said, I mean, he has the heart. He really wants this MVP. He really wants, to prove to the rest of the league, who he really is, and how big of a force he can be. And yeah, I think I can see him playing the rest of the season out, honestly, just because of his comments, yesterday, about this Philly narrative, possibly, people judging him based upon that, and yeah, he just really wants to prove himself. So I just see him playing the rest of the season with Harden probably resting a couple.
Yeah, I could see it going either way, really. I think what would be really nice, and what would be the best way to do it is to beat these really weak teams by 20, and you can get these guys out after 30 minutes, which would be great. Is that going to happen? Who knows? They could get out to a big lead and blow it, which we're all used to at this point. Um, Speaking of, I guess we can just go into it. It's just Sean, you have something else for
Yeah,
that?
and I'd also like to say, like, I think it's important for this team to end the season strong. Like, they
Yeah.
definitely hit kind of a low
Oh,
point fairly recently in terms of just like a couple bad losses, slipped a little bit. Like, I think building a little momentum heading into the playoffs is very important for this team. So, like, these aren't just chalked up last 4 games, even though playoffs are clinched, even though the standings are pretty up in the air still, but the Sixers aren't exactly like gunning for the 1 spot. So, I think there's a lot to play for, and how they play these last 4 definitely matters just in terms of outlook and mentality wise, at least.
Yeah, no, definitely. That is a great point because those couple losses in a row, specifically the Detroit loss,
Yeah.
stings and it hurts, and you shouldn't lose those games. And to they have an opportunity here to win out. They should win out, or they could win out. And going into the playoffs on a 5-game win streak would be huge. For their confidence, it'll be it's going to be interesting to see the way the East plays out. And there's still a lot up in the air there. Uh, but they'll see. And they go to Indiana tonight. But let's talk about. There's some reports this morning, and Jake Fisher reported he works for Bleacher Report, and I don't want to undercut anything here. Jake Fisher has had some questionable reports in the past. Some things have been true, some things have been not so true. So it's not going to dig too far into it, not going to read into it too much. But there's some rumors today that Frank Vogel is out as the Lakers coach, which probably true. More than likely, he is gone after this season. They're on the verge of being eliminated from playoff contention after tonight. So there's a lot going on here. But there is 2 rumored candidates for the Lakers open job going into next season. One being Quinn Snyder, who's a fantastic, creative, offensive coach. The other is our very own Doc Rivers, who is a bland, old, bitter man. So Quinn Snyder, though, let me preface this. Quinn Snyder is a great coach. He has been rumored to be going to San Antonio after this year to be Greg Popovich's successor, depending on his future. He's mulling retirement. Now he's going to there's talks about the Lakers. There's been talks about a bunch of different places for Quinn Snyder. He's that caliber of coach. The Jazz are probably going to blow it up, which conversation for another day. But nothing I love to see more than disdain in Utah. I hate that place. But regardless, Doc Rivers is apparently, being talked about as a coach there. I don't know why. Personally, I don't know why he would be considered for any coaching job after this. But if there's a chance to get rid of Doc Rivers, regardless of what you have to do money-wise, because he's still owed, 3 more years, about $8 million for the next 3 years. There's a couple ways they could go about it. What do you see them doing? Do you think this is true? And does it really depend on the way this postseason goes?
Yeah, so I'll start. I think there's some truth, some false here. I think Vogel's absolutely out as the Lakers coach.
Yeah.
This season has been just about as disastrous as it could have gone for the Lakers. I mean, for a team that was looked at as the next super team in LeBron's squad, to not even have a chance of making the playoffs is pretty crazy at this point. And from LeBron's perspective, like, this is, you made your bed, you got to sleep in it at this point. These were the guys you handpick. This was the roster you handpick, and you can't really be too up in arms about it. There has to be some sort of change whenever there's like that disastrous of a like season, and usually it falls on the head coach. So that's exactly what I expect to happen there. Looking at Doc Rivers, I mean, first off, a little bold to your top two choices both be guys currently employed when looking for hiring. Not exactly the tactic most teams go about, but for Doc, I do think the writing is on the walls in Philly. I mean, there's been like after the Bucks game, Embiid questioning the rotation and saying how he should match minutes with Giannis. That's not like the end of the world, but it's definitely something like to note. Like I think if him and Doc are that much of boys, like he's just not saying that. And same with like comments made by Doc where he's like talked about how his rotation was messed up because Joel had to like rest and was tired. It's just like you just shouldn't be saying that. And like there's obviously the frustrations with Doc have been there. You can paint him up to make his resume look quite good with the championship, with the 17 playoff appearances he has. And you can also point out that he is the most game 7 losses in NBA playoff history and most losses in NBA playoff history. So you can paint it both ways. I do think he's out in Philly just because I don't even think it's make or break for this playoffs. I would argue that Doc has more to prove than any player on the Sixers for this playoffs. But if they're anything short of a conference final, I think it's pretty like dead set. He's out. Even if he gets past that, I think there's a chance. We're looking at like prioritizing Embiid's window to win has been the theme for this team for pretty much just about every decision tied to this team. And I think that there has to be like a real look in the mirror from the Sixers that is this guy that can get us over the hump in the postseason. And frankly, I don't think he is.
Yeah, Sean, I completely agree. Let's tack on to more of the negatives about Doc Rivers. I think he has the most 3-1 leads blown in the playoffs as well. So not only is he blowing leads in games, he's blowing leads in series as well. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't really want him around next year, regardless of what happens in the playoffs. I mean, I think I've seen enough just in the regular season. I mean, he's supposed to be a good regular season coach, but here we are watching like every other game. We're up 15. I go to go get something from my fridge and come back. We're down 7, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Like I'm sick of watching that, and I think we need a guy who's not so stern and stuck in his old ways. I mean, he still won't give Charles Bassey a shot. I mean, we could talk about how bad he is forever. I don't want to get too deep into that, but at this point, I'm kind of done. Just seeing Doc Rivers on the sideline, unless he really impresses me. The only thing that would change my mind is getting past the Eastern Conference Finals and probably taking this team to the finals. That's a high ceiling, and I know it's a high expectations, but really, I've seen enough over the past 2 years. If we're going into last playoffs, and even I think what was it, like a week ago or a few days ago, there was also some rumor that got out that some of the players in the locker room don't really jive with Doc Rivers. Yeah. So I don't really think the chemistry there is there at all. As you guys mentioned, the Joel and Doc going back and forth a little bit. I think he's gone next year. Personally, I don't want to see him back, period, regardless of what happens in the playoffs. Outside of really blowing my mind away.
I knew I was gonna like this kid. That's a great take. Come on, man. You're goddamn right, James G. You're a goddamn right. I think barring a title, I don't care. Get this man out as fast as possible. I really don't care. It's time is up. Everything that's happened. It's not even just basketball. It's not even just the basketball. It's the way that he carries himself. It's the way that he coaches his team. It's his demeanor on the bench. It's the way that he, interacts with the team during the games. Like he looks like the most miserable human being on the planet. Like he's getting paid to coach a basketball team. Like more than most people will see in their life, he's getting paid on a regular season basis to sit on a bench and coach a basketball team. I know that's a difficult job. Right. I don't even know how difficult of a job that is. But it's break it down. It's basketball, man. Like it's supposed to be a game that you love. He's a basketball lifer, and he'll tell you that more than anyone else. He's miserable on the bench. Like the only time he gets excited or gets up off his ass is to yell at an official, and that carries over. Like me and Sean have talked about this so much. This is an entitled ass team that expects victories, that is always expecting things to go right for them. They don't have any grit. They don't have any hustle. It's just like, it's so bothersome the way that he's led this team into this weird dip that they're in. And I'm just done. I'm just done with it. Yeah. And whenever it's time to be done, get out. I don't know what this Sixers postseason is going to bring, but whatever it is, unless they bring the Larry O'Brien home, I don't care. See you later. Figure it out from there. Maybe you get Quinn Snyder. Maybe you get somebody else. I don't know who it's going to be, but the replacement at least will be different and something new, and they need that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And real quick, another thing I will say as far as the LA job specifically, I really can't imagine. Obviously, I think he might end up settling LA just because he spent some time with the Clippers there. Seems to like it out there. But like the Lakers specifically, I feel like they have to go into full blown, pretty much rebuild mode. It's pretty much LeBron and AD. They might try and give that one more go and build everything up. Doc Rivers is not a guy I expect to like willingly jump on a rebuild at this point. Like the state of the team does not seem like something that would interest him. And it's also like I think he's very much doing the battle of his head is like, is it worth getting paid this to keep coaching, or I really just would rather be on a golf course. So I don't think it quite lines up, but who knows? If it's not in Philly, it's not our issue anymore.
Yeah, and James, I want to add on to there's just so much I could say about Doc, but he's miserable. But at the same time, he has like superstars on the court. It's not like he's coaching like the like the Orlando Magic, where you have a lot of bums out there, and it's like so frustrating to watch them play, even though you're trying to coach them. It's just so hard to watch. It's insane to me to see how I don't know, like how miserable he actually is, and even how he carries with himself with the media, and how he has some of those snippy answers, and he's like, "How dare you question me?" That kind of demeanor. He's like, I know what I'm doing. You don't need to question what I'm doing." It's disgusting. Tired of it. I'm sure the entire fan base is tired of it. I mean, we've been in this trust the process era. I don't even know. It's like the never-ending process at this point. It's been since 2014.
Yeah.
I just want to get past the second round, man. Like I just want to see some success, some real success on this team, as anybody would. So, but yeah, that's that.
Yeah, man. He must have been listening to us. He had to have been. He's hitting all the right spots, right? He's hitting all the talking points. Absolutely, man. I totally agree. It's I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore. I mean, I really just do think it's time, and we always go back to this. Daryl Morey did not hire him. Daryl Morey was hired after him. It was very soon after. But Daryl Morey was hired after him. I don't think the loyalty remains between the front office like the way that Doc has. It seems like for most of the times, it seems like he was just kind of had this like free pass. He is Doc Rivers. He has a reputation, and I think that the ownership gave him a pretty long leash to start. And Daryl Morey, obviously, I don't think was going to change anything last year, and it's difficult to change it after the season they had. But I think the expectations that they have, the players that they have, the situation that they're going to go into going into the playoffs, he has to put up or shut up. I think his job is on the line. Absolutely. So to move past this, we're going to close it out here. I want to ask you guys about tonight. The Sixers play the Pacers, who are pretty bad, but they do have some exciting guys. Tyrese Halliburton has been having a great season. TJ McConnell could be back tonight, which is always fun. He's been out like all season, which I don't really understand why you'd bring him back with like 3 or 4 games to go in your season, especially when you're not going to the playoffs or anything. It doesn't really make much sense. But regardless, could see our old friend TJ McConnell. So what's your expectations for the night, and what's your prediction?
Yeah, it would be nice to see TJ again. I was also surprised why he even was brought back, but I do think the Sixers get a win tonight. They're 11.5-point favorites. I don't know how I feel about that line, but I do think they find a way to at least get the victory. I would like to see Joel continue doing his thing and end the season strong, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, man. I don't want to get too confident, but I'm seeing a little bit of a blowout here. I mean, we saw the Pistons game last week, so we can't really, be confident in anything. But I see a blowout. I see Joel and Harden only having to play like 30 minutes. I'd like to see Tyrese getting there with the bench. Get some confidence building there. Get him back on his game because he's been a little off lately. I kind of see that happening like the whole fourth quarter. Going in, it's going to be like a 20 point game, pretty easy W for the Sixers. But, it could be less. You never really know with this team, but, just expecting a pretty relaxed, easy win tonight.
I think we're all hoping for that. I definitely am, man. I want to see them beat. I want to see them beat the brakes off a team that they should beat very badly. And I think the mindset right now, I think they should. They can and they should tonight. So I'm expecting a pretty big W as well. And if you want to, I don't know if you guys have anything else. I'm gonna run through the outro here if you guys are good.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
good.
I'm fine.
All
I'm good.
good.
Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. So if you want to bet on this game, Sean mentioned the line is plus, the Sixers are 11.5-point favorites. I'm personally betting the money line tonight. I don't want any part of a spread in a Sixers game because I know it's bound to just not work out because it never does. But if you want to bet with us, obviously, like I said earlier, go to BetUS, use our code PICKSWAP at login, get your first bet risk-free up to $500. If you want to check us out on Twitter, you can follow Sean at Sean_Bernard1. Follow me at JSPRN17. Follow James G at James.Gilardii. You can follow the podcast at PickSwap Pod. You can check us out on YouTube. Get us anywhere you get your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, wherever else you can get them. And if you guys are interested in anything else, you can check our TikTok. We're doing a bunch of other stuff. Check out our written work. Sean's at PSN. Are you doing clutch points now too? You have that stuff out, or is that? Can I hold
Hasn't
off
been
on that?
announced, but yeah, I will be.
All right. Well, we'll hold off on that. We'll talk about that a little bit more maybe later in the week or next week. We'll chill on that. I didn't mean to break your news or anything. But absolutely, guys, check out the Pacers game tonight, and we'll check you guys out on Thursday.